Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. We've got Michael again for our weekly crypto news update. How are you, Michael?
Good, good. Oh, I've been better, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah,
Yeah, another dump, Bitcoin retesting around that 90-91 area. For those that don't know, Michael's been pumping out all the written research and just a bit of housekeeping for Philip's risk on, risk off tool, which has been super popular. It's now got its own dedicated tab in our research portal, guys. But what are your thoughts on the market before we get into the tabs, Michael?
pretty spooky, I guess. Time. I think for those that have been around for multiple cycles, like obviously we've been here before. For those that are new, welcome. You're being initiated to the pain, house of pain. But I think it's hard to say because effectively, like you never know if you're in a bearish environment until after the fact.
Hmm.
And so I think there has to be some sort of defensive strategy of the what if we are in a bear market or we are going into some bearish times. I don't think we are, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but you kind of got to play it both sides in case we are.
Yeah, and I think as it's more putting your trader hat on or thinking a bit more short term. Definitely not selling, your Bitcoin holdings long term or
Nope.
anything like that, guys. And we'll get into some of that. But yeah, for me, if it's more if the market's looking weak, it's well, what are the things that have pumped the most and are still overvalued that might be at their all time highs while other things are down 90%, and maybe looking for like a pairs trade. If a good coin you think's down 90%, but something else is peaking and you think it's overvalued, looking to sort of hedge that risk that way a little bit. But yeah, what do you want to dive into your slides before you share some more thoughts on this, or?
Sure. Yeah. Just on that as well, though, while I get my tabs up, I think like I've mentioned this before, but I personally denominate my life in Bitcoin. So I live my whole life. I pay my expenses and like any sort of business operational expenses as loans against my Bitcoin in DeFi, mostly on Ethereum. But I denominate myself in Satoshis. And so if your time horizon is to just accumulate more Bitcoin and that's the underground basis of your economic position, and you talked about it the other day in your Bybit video about, become your own bank.
Yeah.
Like I've become my own bank and I've done this for years now. Then all of this stuff is just noise because you're really just trying to measure against Bitcoin and that's looking as strong as ever. But from the short term trading perspective, she's ugly out there. And so that's what we'll talk a little bit about.
Cool. Yeah, we'll talk about the latest on that Bybit hack and the updates from that as well.
Well, I think just to dive in here is the general market overview. You can see exactly what's going on here. Bitcoin down only 3.9% on the week, but you look at ETH 10, XRP 9, Solana 14%, Doge down, Cardano down. Like, I mean, Tron, I don't know what's going on with Tron. I think it's supposed to be Justin Sun buying his coin, but for some reason that's been quite resilient.
Yeah.
Even like just fundamental projects, Link smashed, AVAX smashed, Sui ultra smashed, and these are all projects that we've been sort of fairly bullish on. It doesn't stop. Dot smashed. Where we got it, Uniswap, and which is this is a very interesting one here on Uniswap because they've just launched V4, which is actually very cool tech, and they've got Uni Chain, their own L2. Doesn't matter if the market doesn't want to buy it, no one's going to buy it. Nia, you could go on and on and on. Like some of these projects that are nothing has been able to withstand. But look at Bitcoin, 3.9%. That's, for us people in blockchain and in crypto, 3.9% is nothing. You go to sleep on that, wake up on that, and that's a normal, not good night's rest. So just goes to show the strength of the big daddy Bitcoin.
Yeah, and we might talk about some of your portfolio changes that you've made, and I'm going to maybe talk about. I haven't made any changes again recently, but again, my strategy hadn't changed in terms of being heavier Bitcoin. I'd already lightened up on ETH and other things, months ago now, and I don't think there's a reason to sell good projects at this level now, as long as Bitcoin's still in a bull market. But yeah.
Yeah, I could probably touch on this now. So I think the main change for me right now, my long-term holdings of Bitcoin I haven't touched. The same with my long-term ETH positions. Solana and some of the other altcoins are the ones in the short term which I'm playing defensive with. So for full transparency, I've currently exited Solana, but I don't anticipate it will be a long-term thing. I just think Solana needs to just have a little bit of time to look in the mirror and figure out what it wants to be. There is a big unlock happening on the 1st of March with, I think, about 4 billion tokens coming into the market, 4 billion of tokens. But I
Yes.
think a lot of that's priced in. I don't think a lot of that is just going to go straight dump. I think the main thing here is that obviously Pump Fund has been 25% of Solana's revenue over the last few months. And I don't think that Solana's gonna die because pump fund and meme coins maybe have topped. But Solana needs to transition, and everyone needs to realize, hang on, there still is some, underlying tech here, and there's builders. And so I would love more than anything right now for me to be wrong and this to pump and go back to 160 or 180, and for me to miss that ride, knowing that it's back on and it's still a good trade, as opposed to we capitulate here to sub 100. So I'm just playing defensive here a little bit. I'm okay missing out a little bit of the short-term recovery rally, to protect against potential further downside here. But haven't touched my Bitcoin, haven't touched my ETH, but I've exited most other altcoins in the short term.
And on
And I mean very, very short term.
Yeah, good stuff. And on Solana, I think we said at the time when that pump.fund degeneracy got out of hand with the live streams and stuff, it kind of reminded you of whatever, the ICO bubble back in the day where everyone had to buy ETH to get into ICO. So that big, that was kind of the peak in demand for Sol to pump coins, and that needs to deflate, as you say, and then on to the next chapter. Yeah.
And just as a little anecdotal example of this, I actually spoke at a Bybit meetup last week in Bali, and so there was quite a crowd there. Bybit put it on. They had a big feed and all their normal merch and all that sort of stuff, and had a couple of presenters. And I got asked to speak for 15 minutes and just spoke about fundamental analysis as well. And I was trying to talk about like some projects like Chainlink and like Dot and like Near and some of the AI tokens, and it was over the top of everybody's head. No one had even dabbled with any of these projects before. But the second I said Trump, Melania, Broccoli, Libre, everyone's like, ha 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 ha. Like they've all like traded it. They've all been involved in it. And for me, it was like really eye-opening and also depressing at the same time, because this is an Indonesian community.
Yeah.
And everybody in that room is all like first cyclers. This is their first cycle, and that's what they've been exposed to, Trump and Melania. It's kind of sad at the same time as it is eye-opening to show that a lot of the new people into the space have no connection to projects with fundamentals outside of maybe Bitcoin, and everything else has been meme coin action. So yeah, it goes to show where we're at the moment.
Yeah, and that needs to change if we need to start trading like a traditional market, like Bitcoin has matured to. Absolutely. What do you want to tackle next?
Yeah, I want to chat on this. So we may as well go over like sort of portfolio stuff. So for those that follow Benjamin Cowan, he's a pretty polarizing type of character, but I actually quite enjoy him. He's as dry as you could possibly get for those that don't know him. But he's been calling for Bitcoin dominance to go above 60% for like forever and a day now. And he copped a lot of heat for it, and he's been nothing but correct. Bitcoin dominance went up to 66%, I think. And currently right now, what are we sitting at? Like maybe 60% Bitcoin dominance? Yep, just under. And he's also been calling for ETH to go home. And that's into this sort of zone here. And it wicked down there. When we got that wick last week or 2 weekends ago, where it wicked down to 2100, it technically did go back into his zone of where he calls ETH needs to go home. And this is the Bitcoin and ETH ratio that he's mainly talking about. But he says that like his main thesis here, and he talked with Bankless the other day. So for those that follow all these channels, you can go and watch it directly. But the TLDR is that it might not have been painful enough yet, and that we might need more pain for it to actually bottom, and then for us to have some sort of ETH recovery. And so while he again is bullish on the ETH BTC ratio long term, I think last cycle it got down to 0.17. And right now we're sitting at about 0.23, I think, at the ETH BTC ratio. So he's saying that there needs to be an actual bottoming out, and this could be it now. So until we probably have at least an end of QT, quantitative tightening, and sort of some looser monetary policy, Bitcoin's the trade, I think. We might need to experience a bit of short-term pain before we actually can get ETH to move, and then obviously the altcoins will follow.
Yeah, and in that macro environment, China's increasing their liquidity. Australia just cut interest rates. So things are looking like they want to turn in that environment as well, which is interesting. Did you want to tackle the ETH hack and the Bybit stuff now, or?
Yep, exactly. So for those that are aware, it seems like every Friday night Australia time for like the last 5 weeks, we've gotten some sort of FUD or bad news. And this weekend it was a hack. So for those that haven't caught up, Bybit was hacked for one of its ETH wallets. The story is that they were moving some ETH from their cold wallet So they had like ledger-based cold wallets, and they had a multi-sig transactions where multiple signatures, but somehow had been hacked so that the destination address had been poisoned, and that they signed a transaction from their multi-sig and they moved funds to somebody else's wallet. The simplified version of what happened, and they
Yes.
lost $1.42 billion worth of ETH.
Yeah.
Um, Catastrophic. One of the biggest hacks in history.
Yeah, well, as people know, I did the Bybit debit card video, which because I think it's a great product, and I was wearing my ETH t-shirt, and then I woke up the next day to say Bybit's been hacked for the first time in 7 years or whatever, and it was ETH and ETH tokens, and I was like, you can't make this stuff up. But I think well, some takeaway messages, guys. I still stand by the card as a good product, and as always, keep your funds on cold storage, and that's what it means by becoming your own bank. Have funds in cold storage, have a card where you can pay for things and earn rewards or whatever. That's kind of what I was getting at. But thankfully, it looks like Bybit's already started to recover some of those chunks of ETH, and other chains where they tried to launder the money through or whatever, Thorchain and stuff froze that and they're getting it back. So I think these days it's pretty impossible with all the blockchain analysis firms to hide $1 billion of ETH and ETH tokens. And the good news was that Bybit said they've actually, borrowed enough ETH and whatever to meet, and they've been audited and they're solvent. So this wasn't that bad of news. Funny it happened on a Friday night. We didn't get that weakness over the weekend when markets are thinly traded, but now we're sort of dumping the start of the week.
Yeah, I mean, Zach XBT, who's a good on-chain sleuth. If you don't follow him on Twitter, go shoot him a follow. He effectively realized that it's this Lazarus group out of North Korea. So, fantastic that North Korea now has a $1.4 billion ETH strategic reserve. I joke, but it is great that Bybit has had their business in a position where they've been able to cover this and that everyone's been made one-to-one. And I agree, like that product that you talked about is a great product. I've used that. I've used the crypto.com one. And it is just really like liberating to be able to know that you can just load up a Visa debit card or a MasterCard debit card, and be able to go and buy your groceries and not have to go cash out, go through your normal bank. It's going to block your transactions. But yeah, hats off to Bybit. I think this is probably made the best of a bad scenario. But it's just, it's very interesting that then we don't actually capitulate until after the weekend and markets open again. So
yeah,
connected or not, who knows?
Very hard to read at the moment, the altcoin market still. But all right, what's up next for us, Michael?
I think this is one that you want to have a little bit of a discussion about.
It is. So I copped a fair bit last year when I said for the first time I'm buying some XRP and XLM, and people thought I'd gone mad or I was a trader or whatever. But my argument was that I'd never been bullish on it in the past 8 years because I didn't think banks would ever use it and stablecoins would be the play, and that's exactly what happened. But now I've changed my thesis around it, that this radical restructuring of the financial system and the tax system and everything that Trump and other nations look like they're going to do, it paves the way for using some new technologies. And this was a paper that the Fed put out just recently, I think, in the past few days, but it's discussing Byzantine fault tolerance, which is the consensus mechanism, and they name XRP, XLM, Algorand, Hashgraph. There's a few others, and all of these are also ISO compliant with the banking regulations for that messaging system they use for international fund transfers. So this is why I'm happy to have a little bit of exposure. Doesn't mean I don't still think Bitcoin's going to be the gold and the new world reserve standard or whatever. And it doesn't mean I don't think ETH's still going to be our best hope at building a decentralized internet. But I think that there's a chance that these products maybe are used as the new software for all these payment systems. So what do you think? Am I being biased, or is this starting to play out the way that I've sort of laid it out?
No, I'm exactly the same as you. I've been vocally anti-XRP for 2 cycles now. And I think that people can change their opinion on things. I'm happy to be proven wrong. And you gotta remember, guys, these are not like family members or like your children here that you've got to defend, to your last dying breath. Like, you can change your opinion about things.
Yeah.
I don't know enough on this space now. I mean, I obviously hear it like multiple times throughout the community that this is a thing, and clearly XRP has performed. So clearly there's a community who believe that this is the case and that adoption is coming. And so, 2 things can be true at the same time. And I think maximalism in any form, and not just in, what tokens you like, but maximalism in any form, that's extremism. That's what fundamentalism is. So keep an
Yes.
open mind, and I'm going to watch this space much more closely. I'll admit we have not committed any time or resources to researching this, but we absolutely will be now.
Yeah, expanded team and expanded ecosystems, and I end up being the one across XRP. Who would have thought that a few years ago? But that's why we've got to keep an open mind to everything with what's going on in the world today.
Yeah, I mean it's an incredible time, and like we'll continue our research. And as the situation changes, we've always said that the reason why this community is so great is because we can have that hive mind, and there's not enough time in the day for everyone to individually cover all this stuff. Not me, not Alex, not anybody. But as a collective, if we can, all be operating in an environment where we can all take in bits of information and we can condense it down, we have our best chance at doing well here. So we'll keep scouring and looking for opportunities. And just remember, guys, don't things are never as good as they seem, but they're also never as bad as they seem. So
Yes.
don't go rage quitting crypto because you're down 30%. Like even in a bear market, there's opportunities galore to be making all sorts of yield and all sorts of new tech. And we don't even know if the market will operate in the same way where we have these crazy drawdowns. I think Bitcoin just looks like it's just going to be Bitcoin from now on. So
Yes.
don't rage quit. Don't get too disheartened. Play defensively in the short term if you're trading, but stick to your fundamental investments and just know that the sun will come up tomorrow still.
Yeah, and final bit of housekeeping, guys. You can still sign up for the free newsletter where you get the weekly wrap up and hottest trends, the paid research, or our VIP group. We're going to try and do that meeting regularly now on the first Tuesday of every month, where you jump on with my team and all the VIPs, and we do the back and forward. And that's recorded for anyone that does miss it. So awesome wrap up, Michael. Hopefully we see some more green when we catch up next week.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Cheers.